Welcome back. In this segment of this presentation, I would like to talk about briefly the history of philosophy. Philosophy itself historically divides itself by the birth of Socrates, the life of Socrates. Socrates is considered the father of philosophy. Philosophers that come before Socrates are called PreSocratic philosophers. PreSocratic philosophers, that is, individuals that either philosophize before the time of philosophy or whose philosophy is inherently pre-Socratic. It came before Socrates' unique way of reasoning. Those who come after Socrates are called post-Socratic philosophers. And the Socratic philosophers are the major philosophers that worked at the same time as Socrates and were also influenced by Socrates' unique style of reasoning, which earned him the title of being the father of philosophy. The first philosopher was a pre-Socratic. His name was Thales. The pre-Socratic philosophers began as the ancients would describe them as Sophists. They were seen as wise men. They had theories about reality that did not depend on appeals to the gods or some monarch, a king who has powers. They believed in a thing called logos, which we today call logic. They discovered the law of non-contradiction. Okay, and they applied this to thinking about the world. It made all the difference because this was the beginning of both science and philosophy. After the rise of the pre-Socratic philosophers, the Sophists, there came another group called the Sophists. The Sophists are seen as not necessarily a glorious part of philosophy. The Sophists argued that all truth were relative. There were no absolutes in understanding reality or understanding society. The Sophists tried to convince everyone that the confusion that previous philosophers were having in understanding the world was in fact inherent in doing philosophy itself. These philosophers argued that truth is understood by rhetoric, that is, word trickery that make things sound right. However, these people were very important because they became the first professors of law. Okay, they thought about social political philosophy. After the rise of the Sophists, that's when Socrates came in. Socrates was able to convince people that some truths were absolute. He engaged in a new type of reasoning we may now call abstract reasoning that showed that some knowledge, something that we hold to be true, are necessarily true, and thus the Sophists cannot be correct, that all truths are relative. That, and also the fact that Socrates died for his beliefs, earned him the name of father of philosophy. He did not write himself. Socrates went around Athens promoting philosophy through a dialogue and discussion. Socrates influenced two other major philosophers, Plato, and following Plato, Aristotle, who became the pillar of Western philosophy. With the fall of Aristotle, it wasn't until what we call the modern time, the 1500s, that René Descartes emerged as a new thinker on the field. René Descartes became known as the father of modern philosophy because he taught us a new way to think. Modern philosophers represent the next division of philosophy. Descartes showed us that we no longer had to reason as the ancient did in this more scientific way. We could look at the world from a more subjective perspective. Descartes showed that through a new process of reasoning called deductive reasoning, okay, that one can actually trust in his or her intuition and make conclusions which were infallible, okay, and so it earned them a new name. These philosophers were different. They looked at the external world, they tried to develop concepts regarding the existence of God, and they ushered in a new way of reasoning.